Yo, what's going on everybody? So today I want to have a conversation with you guys about some of the stuff that I picked up on in Boruto Chapter 39. So obviously, if you're an anime only viewer, I apologize, but this is the part of the month where we are going to be having a lot of spoiler heavy conversations. So if you have not read the Boruto manga, first I highly recommend that you read the manga because the manga is straight flames right now. Like, I know the anime has a really good arc going on, but everything that's going on in the manga for the last year and a half, I'm gonna have to start saying 2 years in a couple months, but for the last year and a half the manga has been on fire. So if you're not reading the manga, I have links down in the description box for a way for you to read the manga and do so in a way that supports the channel. So if you're still here, I'm gonna assume you're okay with me talking about any type of spoilers. So when I was reading Boruto Chapter 39, one of the things that really grabbed my attention was the extreme emphasis that Ikimoto put on the character of Amado when he was looking over at Delta, and there was just a gradual build up to it. And it's one of those things where as I got to reading the chapter, and I know that was towards the middle, transitioning towards the end of the chapter, but as I got to reading it, that was a scene that just really stuck with me, and I was very tempted to just go in detail about that in the chapter review. But I mean, the review would have been closer to 35-40 minutes if I would have did that. So I decided to kind of break that off and save it for another topic for another day. And so when I was reading the chapter and I'm looking at Amado's facial expressions, the thing that grabbed me is he's looking in the way that he's drawn. He has all the signs of a character that's being drawn with a secret as well as with a saddened expression. So if you just look very closely, one of the first clues that we get is you see how he's looking out the corner of his eye. You see how the wrinkles on like the forehead and everything, the lines of his face, all those are drawn as if they're coming together, as if he's in deep thought. Now the other thing that you should take note of is the fact that his eyes, the glasses, it's like there's a reflection on there. You can't see how his eyes look. You can see one eye in the corner looking over towards Delta, but the other eye, you can't make out what that looks like. And that's an artistic choice, but that's also something that a lot of mangaka as well as a lot of comic book writers will, or excuse me, a lot of comic book artists will do when they're trying to convey a secret as well as some type of hidden pain. Now, for those you might say, well, you might be reaching, Etro Oda does that in One Piece all the time. And if you read the Naruto manga, Kishimoto did that a lot in the Naruto franchise when he was using the faces and the mannerisms of the characters to foreshadow stuff that's coming in the future. So as I was reading it, so that stood out to me. The other thing that stood out to me is right after that, or excuse me, right before that, you have Jigen, aka Ashiki Asusuke, talking about the fact that this tree will be produced by Boruto and Kawaki, that all of their dreams will come true. And I pointed out how in the manga it's very strange that that language is in there, because it's one of those things that makes you say dreams, God tree, infinite Tsukiyomi, like those are things that are right in your face, much in the same way that right before Obito was revealed and you have him having those conversations with Kakashi, the Toby is Obito at that point in the community. When you go back to the forums and look at all the posts, when you look at all that, the Toby is Obito theories went from being about 20% of the fandom to people saying, I can't believe it, Toby's gonna be Obito. Like, it was one of those things, we knew we were on the precipice of the reveal, and sure enough, after you got that line of, like, you know, heroes with graves and nice eye Kakashi, all that other stuff, we were all prepared for it, but it still caused a meltdown when chapter 599 and chapter 600 came out in the Naruto manga. Part of the reason why I do think that they're going this route with Amado having a daughter in Delta or having some type of family relationship to her is, let's look at one of the big themes of the Boruto series. It's something that I haven't seen a lot of reviewers talk about, so it's something I'm gonna go ahead and just stick my toe into it. I did this over on Kryptonian saying Boruto Naruto Next Generations has been talking about the theme of family for a really long time, in particular when it comes to the relationship between father and child. If you include the events of Naruto Gaiden, which the anime actually adapted, so that's gonna fit in your timeline, but look at the themes that we always have. It's usually centered around parent and child, more so in the manga. So in the Versus Momoshiki arc, you have the relationship between Naruto and Boruto and the breakdown of the relationship between those two. When you look at Momoshiki and Kinshiki, from the stuff I was able to gather, part of the reason why Urashiki was cut was because he didn't contribute to what was being basically built up as a mentor and student relationship between Momoshiki and Kinshiki, which you could also kind of say is like a pseudo father and child relationship, even though they're not blood related in that sense. sense. Now, when you move on to Naruto Gaiden, which takes place before that, you had Shin Uchiha and you had the Shin clones, like the children's. You also had Sasuke and Sarada, and when you get to the Majima Bandits, you have the theme continuing with the son of the feudal lord and the feudal lord. And now when you just keep watching as everything's progressing, that father and child theme continues to be there. When you get to the Ao slash the Kawaki arc, the same thing pops up. You get information about how Jigen was being a father towards Kawaki, how Kawaki's own father sold him to the Kara organization, and how Jigen essentially wants to be treated like that father, but he's beating on Kawaki, and how when Kawaki's around Naruto, he's actually experiencing what it means to have a real father who is loving and nurturing and cares for you. And now in the latest chapter, you have Sarada talking about the fact that sometimes she wished that Naruto would have actually been her father. So when you look at all those clues, all of a sudden, Delta being the child of Amado, the scientist of the Kara organization, doesn't seem too far-fetched. Now, we do know that Delta is essentially, I said she was a cyborg, but when you got the revelation in chapter 34, after Naruto and Delta finished their battle, you found out that there were multiple Deltas. And so it's one of those things where her consciousness is probably somewhere else, and her consciousness gets transferred to those Delta clones. Now, look at what we have right now. So in the Boruto series so far, we've already seen a character in Ao who should have been blown to tidbits by the Biju bomb that was fired off by the Ten Tails in the war arc. All of a sudden, we get a backdoor retcon to where Ao managed to survive by escaping at the very last minute before anyone else could notice. And so when you look at what happened during the Fourth Shinobi World War, and you look at Delta and her age, she's clearly older than Boruto's generation, but she's definitely younger than Naruto and them, which means she would have been a child during the events of the Fourth Great Ninja War. Now, here's the thing. We know that technology did hit a huge rise in the 15 years between the end of the Ninja War and the beginning of the Versus Momoshiki arc. And I'm gonna tell you why this is huge, because when you look at the Fourth Great Ninja War, one of the things that happened is all these different villages were essentially evacuated. We know from the Sakura Hida novel that there were people who returned to their homes and found out that they didn't have a home, they didn't have a village, they didn't have a community because of all the fighting that took place, because of all these overpowered jutsu being fired all over the place. Like the Fourth Shinobi World War took place over a span of 2.5 countries. People were evacuated all over the place. The Biju bombs that were fired off by the Ten Tails struck a lot of different places. You gotta remember, there was more than one Biju Dama that was fired off as Obito and Amado were trying to gain control over the Ten Tails, and so they could actually aim properly. So it's one of those things where when you look at it, all of a sudden motivation's there. What if we have a moment where it's revealed that Amado is indeed the husband? What if we have a moment where it's revealed that Amado is actually the father or grandfather of Delta, and she ended up getting injured during that Fourth Shinobi World War, either because her family didn't evacuate or a Biju bomb struck where they were hiding and she was one of those last survivors? What if you have one of those moments where her mind is intact but her body is essentially shut down? And so it's one of those things where, because say her consciousness is transferred over to these different Delta clones, if that is something that happens, all of a sudden there's an opportunity for you to write in the fact that she doesn't have all of her memory. What if that's the price for science allowing her to move around again? And the only thing with that is, it's like, well, why would she become a weapon? Again, it would come into the whole thing with motivation. We would know why Amado dives so deeply into science. We would also know why Amado made his daughter or granddaughter be able to actually combat people as powerful as Hokage Naruto, simply for the fact that she was defenseless to begin with. Now the character motivations are there. And when you start looking at all of that, that is something I could see, because one of the things that Masashi Kishimoto started diving into really deeply, I'd say really when it comes to the Pain arc onward, is war affects people in different ways. And so you saw with Pain how when Nagato was growing up and Konan and Yahiko, when they were growing up, they were also defenseless, but they chose to learn how to fight, and eventually they wanted to change the world for the better. When you look at at Obito. Obito went through psychological trauma via war and wanted to change the system by basically taking over the whole damn world. The same thing is true of Madara. Amado was shaped by war. And so now when you move into the Boruto era, this is an opportunity to show how civilians might be shaped by the war. And I know that the Sakura Hiden novel did kind of touch on this, but this gives us an opportunity to go even deeper into that. But I want to know from you guys, what do you guys think about my theory that there could be a connection between Delta and Amado? Like, I know there have been like a few posts here and there about that on different Reddit posts, but nobody's really gone as in depth as what I feel like I've done on this video. Same thing, I was really waiting for some other creators to talk about it, and I thought about reaching out for a collab on this, but due to my work schedule, I can't really do collabs as much as I would like to. So I really want to know what you guys think about this possibility. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.